Thanks everyone for giving me prayers about my house and my move situation. I'm in a holding pattern waiting for it to all work out. So in the meantime, I decided to research this news of the creation of the dire wolves. I think this is significant news prophetically to the end times because Jesus specifically said it would be like the days of Noah before he returns. The story of Noah's flood centered around the genetic corruption of God's creation. The names of the dire wolves are also significant to the end times, I believe. Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi. Romulus was the first king of Rome, which is the last beast empire on Nebuchadnezzar's statue, interpreted by Daniel. Romulus and Remus were said to have been fathered by the god Mars and a female woman, but raised by a she-wolf. So by that definition, Romulus and Remus were Nephilim raised by a chimeric wolf. Khaleesi was the mother of dragons in Game of Thrones. A dragon, biblically, represents Satan. The game was for king or queen of the Iron Throne, or you could say the king of the last beast empire of iron mixed with clay, or you could say the Antichrist. Khaleesi's character was played by Emilia Isabel Euphemia Rose Clark, who is Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, and so is her mother. Kit Harington, who played Jon Snow, was also a bloodliner. He was named for Kit Marlowe, who I've covered before in prior videos. His parents are Sir David Harington, 5th Baronet, and former playwright Deborah Jane Catesby. Through his father, Harington is related to Scottish politician Henry Dundas, 1st Viscount Melville, and through his father's side, he is related to King James I and to Lord Harington of Exton. And I'm just going to play part of the video that I did that covered these dire wolves briefly before. The article says, dire wolves have just been brought back from extinction, and no, this isn't some Game of Thrones fantasy. Immortalized in Game of Thrones and on the crest of House Stark, the dire wolf is walking the earth again and even howling after going extinct nearly 10,000 years ago. As announced today by genetic engineering company Colossal Biosciences, the long extinct canine, or at least a very close approximation of it, has been successfully brought back to life. The process was accomplished via DNA extracted from fossils as well as edits of the genetic code of a gray wolf. Colossal says it has whelped 3 dire wolves using CRISPR technology. They named the 2 male dire wolves Romulus and Remus, after the founders of Rome, who were said to have been raised by a wolf. And in homage to the Game of Thrones, Daenerys Targaryen, it's christened a female puppy, Khaleesi. The trio are now living in an enclosed preserve of more than 2,000 acres at an undisclosed location. They're going to mature at 130 to 150 pounds. They took a 13,000-year-old tooth, they say, and a 72,000-year-old skull and made healthy dire wolf puppies. The CEO of Colossal said, "It was once said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Today, our team gets to unveil some of the magic they are working on and its broader impact on conservation. In a twist that could only have been dreamed up by Hollywood filmmaker Sir Peter Jackson and Game of Thrones creator George R.R. Martin, collaborated with Colossal Bioscientists on today's reveal of what the company is trumpeting as the first ever de-extinction of an animal. Sir Peter Jackson, who is an investor in the biotech company, loaned Colossal this Iron Throne from Game of Thrones. You know, the Roman Empire, the Empire of Iron, the Iron Throne. Colossal reached out to George R.R. Martin after it started to work on its dire wolf extinction project, and then George R.R. Martin signed on as Colossal Biosciences' cultural advisor and investor, and then he flew to meet Romulus and Remus. He says that dire wolves are not mythical creatures, they actually existed. So they're bringing them back from extinction. It says that in tandem with genetically engineering its 3 dire wolves, Colossal has cloned 2 litters of red wolves. They plan to bring back the woolly mammoth, the Tasmanian tiger, and the dodo bird from extinction. This massive milestone is the first of many coming examples demonstrating that our end-to-end de-extinction technology stack works. This guy's name is Lamb, who founded Colossal with a Harvard geneticist. It says they plan to restore the direwolf as a viable species and secure ecological preserves for it on indigenous land in North America. The Iron Throne. What's the metal in the last beast empire in the statue that Daniel interpreted in Nebuchadnezzar's dream? Iron. And I just want to remind that Sir Peter Jackson is a Knight of the Crown, Order of the British Empire. Sir Peter Jackson funded getting Damien Eccles, the satanic child murderer, off death row. And then Sir Peter Jackson also had him living with him in New York. So Damien Eccles is the one who perfected his occult practices for 20 years that he was on death row. Then he got out and got matching tattoos with Sir Peter Jackson and Johnny Depp. Okay, so that's just to give an idea about the kind of theater and religion we're dealing with in these people who are promoting these dire wolves. When I say promoting, to have something on the cover of Time magazine, that is like international big deal promotion. This is announcing it on the world stage. This is not going away, but it will get worse, as in the days of Noah. A little about Time magazine. It was founded in 1923, right after the CFR was founded, and it was funded by Yale graduates, J.P. Morgan bankers, Brown Brothers Harriman, and Standard Oil. They continue to push and glorify everything that is wrong with the world. I've covered the founding of Yale many times, but for more information, see my video titled Yale. In short, Yale was founded by a corrupt Welsh witch who made his fortune on the opium trade. They loved their predatory animals and incorporate them into their heraldry, and they would want to honor the she-wolf mother of Romulus. And that just reminds me of the Omen movie, where Damien's mother was a jackal. A commenter in my video, where I briefly covered the dire wolves, said this: "As for dire wolves, before Game of Thrones, did you ever hear about one as an extinct animal? I never did, so I did a little research. Song of Fire and Ice, which is where the books Game of Thrones were adapted from. These books came out in 1991, so I looked for a dire wolf before 1990. A brave search from 1970 to 1990, no dire wolves. Library of Congress archives of newspapers from the 1700s to 1968, there was one article containing dire wolf, and it was the surname of a man who was arrested for abusing and killing infants. He obtained from the almshouses. Both search parameters did have an article on woolly mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, dodo birds, but not a word about an extinct dire wolf. This leads me to believe a dire wolf never existed before the George R.R. Martin books. They did not bring back anything from extinction. They have genetically modified a gray wolf and have created a new species. I've read the comments where people say they have seen huge wolves, and I don't doubt it. We all know when they go public with something new, they've been doing it for quite a while." End of comment. So supposedly the fossils of these extinct dire wolves were found in North America, but ultimately I think these things were the collaboration of those in the club and fallen angels using genetic manipulation, just like as in the days of Noah. They supposedly created them using CRISPR. Jennifer Doudna is the person who pioneered CRISPR technology, and she was Fellowship of the Royal Society, of course. Again, the same people, same club. Now I'm going to play some of another video that I did a while back about the CIA investing in this same technology. Obviously, it is a CIA-funded situation about the Colossal Biosciences company, and the one that I've covered in this previous video that I'm about to play. The CIA also has a history of engaging with Hollywood since its inception in 1947, because this is all tied together with Hollywood. It says the CIA is involved in script approval and uses film and TV to address and mitigate public affairs issues. But the CIA is just the American counterpart of MI6. There's a long history of close cooperation between the U.S. and the U.K. intelligence services. There are permanent liaison offices of each country in major intelligence agencies of the other: CIA, MI6, FBI, MI5, and NSA, GCHQ. So I'm going to play some of this video about the CIA and In-Q-Tel now. I was listening to a podcast with Judd Burton, and he mentioned a company who is resurrecting extinct animals, including the woolly mammoth, using bioengineering. In-Q-Tel. And sure enough, the CIA is funding research into resurrecting extinct animals, including the woolly mammoth and the tiger-like thylacine, which is this thing, which is akin to a Tasmanian devil, they say. The foundation of this process is a gene editing method called CRISPR. And the person who pioneered CRISPR is Jennifer Doudna, and she was Fellowship of the Royal Society, of course. Dr. Burton also said that they were investing in the recreation of a Neanderthal using the same methods. Formerly, the name of this company was Peleus, who in Greek pantheon was a hero, king of Thea, husband of Thetis, and father of their son Achilles. But then they changed the name to In-Q-Tel, and it's an intentional reference, they say, to Q, the fictional inventor who supplies technology to James Bond. And James Bond's character is based on John Dee, the famed occultist of Elizabeth I, the Fairy Queen. It's an American not-for-profit venture capital firm in Virginia that invests in research as a government, taxpayer-funded venture capital firm. It invests in companies to keep the CIA and other intelligence agencies equipped in the latest information technology, and the idea supposedly came from George Tenet, who was a CIA director. But it was originally founded in 1999 by a U.S. aerospace businessman who served as U.S. Secretary of the Army. And the mission is to identify and invest in companies developing cutting-edge technologies. As of 2016, In-Q-Tel listed 325 investments, but more than 100 were kept secret due to national security. So the idea to take taxpayer money and funnel it to a venture capital company to invest in whatever secret technologies that they want was the idea of a CIA director. And they originally named it after a Greek pagan god, but then they changed the name to an inventor who supplied technology to John Dee the occultist. Rooted in witchcraft. All of this prompted me to research the history of this resurrected dire wolf and where the name came from, and some background on this company, Colossal Biosciences. And it was a little difficult to research all of that because there were so many people and institutions involved, and different ways the money was being funneled, and associations and so on. But I just tried to pull out what I felt was significant for this report. And there are some common themes and organizations shared by those involved, such as the American Philosophical Society, the Explorers Club, which I'll talk about later, the intelligence agencies, so government funded with our taxpayer dollars, Hollywood, promotion in other media besides Hollywood, like Time Magazine, the Witch Club, with ancestry of those who founded the U.S. and their polymaths, eugenics. graduation and professorships at universities founded and run by these same witches, such as Yale, Harvard, and MIT, and NASA involvement. So the first specimen of what would later become associated with the dire wolf was found in mid-1854 in the Ohio riverbed in Indiana, and it was just a jawbone. But remember, these people and these fallen angels, they play the long game. Paleontologist Joseph Leidy determined that the specimen represented an extinct species of wolf just from the jawbone alone. Joseph Leidy is in the club. He was an American supporter of Darwin's theory of evolution, and he has a statue at the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia. He was also a member of the American Philosophical Society. The American Philosophical Society is an American scholarly organization and learned society founded in 1743 in Philadelphia that promotes knowledge in humanities and natural science through research, professional meetings, publications, library resources, and community outreach. So this is the philosophy of science, not actual science necessarily. It was founded by the polymath Benjamin Franklin and is considered the first learned society founded in what became the U.S. Benjamin Franklin was a member of the Hellfire Club. I've covered him before in other videos, and I've covered polymaths before in other videos. Polymaths are reportedly genius in a wide variety of disciplines, which all give rise to the beast system. In other words, they're either frontmen and or they are being given fallen angel tech. So then the dire wolf was passed to Joe Allen, also a member of the American Philosophical Society, and then Joel Allen was also a Harvard graduate. Then the torch was passed in 1908 to paleontologist John Campbell Merriam, who began retrieving numerous fossil bone fragments of a large wolf from the Rancho La Brea tar pits in LA. In 1918, Merriam proposed the fossils be classified into a separate genus, which is Aenosian, from genus terrible and Sion, dog, to become Aenosian dirus. But at that time, not everyone agreed with this extinct wolf being placed in a new genus separate from the genus Conus, or Canis, like canine. This is a regular wolf on the left versus the dire wolf on the right, and I'm not seeing much difference, except they made the skeletons a different color and one is slightly larger. But regardless, they did create a separate genus from the canine and named it Aenosian for terrible dog, and then later added the species Dinus, and that means fearful or ominous. So in Latin, Aenosian Dinus means terrible, ominous, fearful dog. This Latin name is translated to the name dire wolf. So why would they want to bring back something named purposefully as terrible, ominous dog? Because that's the type of dog they want for a pet, or for the mother, in this case of Romulus and Remus, at least in legend. Just like they love their horsies, but they want the ones that impale, especially in battle, like the unicorn or the little horn or the AC. I'm not saying unicorn is an AC, but I'm saying it's definitely symbolic of the AC. So these are terrible, ominous dogs. So then it just goes on to give all the evidence of how they morphed over the millions of years in North America to the dire wolf. The paleontologist who determined that they were a separate genus and species was this John Campbell Merriam. Merriam's ancestry traces to the original settlers of the Massachusetts Bay Colony from England. His ancestors were Revolutionary and then Civil War officers. His cousin, Frank Merriam, was the governor of California in the 1930s. So this John Merriam follows the pattern of other people that I've researched who are in the Witch Club. I have many examples of this pattern in other videos. See my playlist titled Witches Who Settled and Governed the U.S. John Campbell Merriam was also a supporter of eugenics. Eugenics is a set of beliefs and practices that aim to improve the genetic quality of the human population. Historically, eugenicists have attempted to alter the frequency of various human phenotypes by inhibiting the fertility of people and groups they considered inferior and promoting that of those they consider superior. He has a lot of degrees, this guy, from all these places, including Yale. Okay? There are over 400 skulls of these supposed dire wolves on display and backlit in a museum near LA. Now that is showcasing right there. The wall of skulls, like a shrine from some weird sci-fi movie. That right there is really creepy. Now, regarding the idea that these dire wolves and these scientists have already been doing this and that some of these things are already running around. I saw what I thought was a hellhound about a year ago, driving at nighttime. And this thing was so freaky looking that I thought it was an interdimensional creature. I was not sure what it was, but it wasn't a dog or a hyena or anything natural, and it was massive. Please see my video titled Hellhound. And then a couple of my commenters say they have seen similar creatures. But this rendition of the dire wolf does look a little like the one I saw. The one I saw did not have long hair. It had very short or no hair. Other commenters, one believes they saw one in Oregon and another in Washington State. So, as in the video clip I played earlier with In-Q-Tel, the CIA is funding research into resurrecting extinct animals, including the woolly mammoth and the tiger-like thylacine, using CRISPR. And these are the same animals that Colossal Biosciences are resurrecting, as we just read. As of 2016, In-Q-Tel listed 325 investments, but more than 100 were kept secret. So it's a not-for-profit venture capital firm in Arlington, privately held corporation, same as Colossal. It invests in technology research as a government taxpayer-funded venture capital firm, and it invests in companies to keep the CIA and other intelligence agencies equipped with the latest in IT. So now let's look closely at Colossal Biosciences. It's an American biotechnology and genetic engineering company, worked to de-extinct several extinct animals, including the woolly mammoth and the Tasmanian tiger, the exact same ones listed by In-Q-Tel. But of course they would start with the dire wolf for their symbolic beast system, but also because they may get more support with dogs, because dog is a man's best friend and the puppies they parade around are cute. Although this dire wolf is a terrible, ominous dog by their own definition. Like In-Q-Tel, Colossal is a privately held company, but formed the Colossal Foundation with $50 million in funding in 2024, and the Colossal Foundation is a 501c3 not-for-profit. Colossal Biosciences, the company, is valued at $10.2 billion. It was supposedly founded in 2021 by George Church and Ben Lamb. In 2012, Church was part of a team that pioneered the CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing tool. So let's take a look at George Church. American genealogist, molecular engineer, chemist, and serial entrepreneur and pioneer in personal genomics and synthetic biology. He is a professor at Harvard and MIT. Through his Harvard laboratory, Church has co-founded around 50 biotechnology companies. The Church laboratory works on research projects that are distributed in diverse areas of modern biology, like developmental biology, neurobiology, information processing, medical genetics, aging, genomics, gene therapy, diagnostics, chemistry, and bioengineering, space biology, and space genetics, and ecosystem. research and technology developments at the church laboratory have impacted or made direct contributions to nearly all next-generation sequencing methods and companies. In 2017, Time magazine listed him in Time 100 Most Influential People in the World. He was born at MacDill Air Force Base, so military parents. He attended a preparatory school, Phillips Academy in Massachusetts, then Duke University, and then he did graduate work at Harvard. So this all may seem like boring information, but what I'm trying to do is establish a pattern. He also worked with China on some of the same biogenetics. So now let's talk about synthetic biology. Synthetic biology, simply put, creates new life forms or artificial life forms or modifies existing life forms, which is what they have done with these dire wolves. It includes designing and constructing biological modules, systems, and machines. It includes biochemistry, biotechnology, biomaterials, genetic engineering, molecular biology and engineering, electrical and computer engineering, and evolutionary biology. One example is encoding digital information into synthetic DNA. It says in 2012, this George Church encoded one of his books about synthetic biology onto DNA. In a similar project, he encoded the complete sonnets of William Shakespeare onto DNA. These people love Shakespeare because it's their polytheist history in a masked form of writing. Synthetic biology raised NASA's interests, it says, because synthetic biology could be used on Mars to make life there less dependent on Earth. Synthetic biology creates living organisms in vitro from chemical and biomolecules. And in vitro technology was also discovered by a Knight of the Crown. I've covered that before in other videos. George Church invented detectors for dark matter, anti-cancer nanobots, and gene therapy age reversal techniques. Church was partly funded from 2000 to 2007 by nonprofit Jeffrey Epstein the Sixth Foundation. Epstein was a eugenicist also. Church faced criticism for his response to a question from Der Spiegel, where he speculated that it could be technically possible to make a Neanderthal by reconstructing its DNA and modifying living human cells accordingly. So now let's look at the other founder, supposedly, of Colossal Biosciences, Ben Lamb. He's an American serial entrepreneur and billionaire as well, and he's best known for partnering with George Church on the idea for de-extinction and founding a venture capital-backed startup known as Colossal to support Church's work in the development of genetic engineering and reproductive technology. And as of 2025, his net worth is $3.7 billion. Lamb secured investments from Paris Hilton, Thomas Tull, Tom Brady, and I think he's the one whose wife is a witch, Peter Jackson, and Chris Hemsworth. And he has raised more than $235 million in 2024. It says during the 2022 South by Southwest Festival, Lamb was on a panel moderated by Richard Garriott that made the case for de-extinction. And Richard Garriott is the son of NASA astronaut Owen Garriott. Garriott flew aboard the ISS mission where he filmed a science fiction movie called Apogee of Fear. He's now a video game developer, that Richard Garriott. And a private astronaut. Lamb founded his first company when he was a senior at Baylor University. It says he sold ventures such as Simply Interactive, an e-learning software company, Chaotic Moon Studios, a mobile app company, Team Chaos, a digital gaming company, Conversable, a conversational bot technology, and Hypergiant Industries, a machine learning AI. All of these were sold to other companies for, quote, undisclosed sums upon each company's acquisition. In October of 2024, Lamb launched the Colossal Foundation, which is the 501c3 that utilizes Colossal Bioscience developed technology for bioengineering globally. Biobanking is one of its key focuses. Biobanking. As of February 2025, Colossal has raised $435 million in total funding since its foundation. So let's talk for a minute about the public figures investing in this company. We already know about Sir Peter Jackson, talked about him before. George R.R. Martin, Game of Thrones or Song of Fire and Ice author. So these are Hollywood people. In late 2022, Lamb co-founded FormBio, a software company spun out of Colossal Biosciences. FormBio was funded through a $30 million investment deal involving Thomas Tull, who is also Hollywood. Thomas Tull is a billionaire businessman, entrepreneur, and film developer. Tull is the founder of Tullco LLC, an investment holding company that uses AI and other technology to guide investing, including film. He also owns part of a healthcare apparel company, like masks and PP, personal protective, whatever. Tull has also invested in a variety of other AI and data science-driven companies, including Luvos, Genies, Oculus, and Zoox. He's part owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tull founded Legendary Entertainment in 2005, becoming the CEO and chairman. He describes himself as a fanboy of comics, and several of the films produced by Legendary, which is his company, were his personal favorites, including Watchmen, 300, and Dark Knight. So he is an executive producer of films, and an executive producer oversees the entire production from conception to production, financing, securing talent, providing strategic guidance, but with a hands-off approach compared to the line producer. But it's the executive producer who has the significant say in whether or not the project moves forward. They play a crucial role in hiring the director, actors, and other key personnel. They also develop and execute marketing plans to promote the film. For example, when you look up the movie 10,000 BC, which is one of his, he is not listed as the producer, but there is no executive producer listed because it's basically the CIA. So that movie 10,000 BC involves shaman, woolly mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, and four-legged demons. Now, let's look at some of the other movies that he was the executive producer for. Dracula Untold. Because it always goes back to vampires, is what I'm telling you. Watchmen, Interstellar, Jurassic World, Dune, the series, Superman Returns, 300, Trick or Treat, The Dark Knight, Clash of the Titans, Inception, and Jack the Giant Slayer. And he was producer, not executive producer, but producer for As Above, So Below, Seventh Son, and in the occult, the seventh son is fated to be a vampire, Black Hat, Krampus, Warcraft, and all the Godzilla movies. So he was also founder and member of the American rock and southern soul band Ghost Hounds. Ghost Hounds. He plays the guitar. Ghost was the name of the main dire wolf in Game of Thrones. Ben Lamb is one of the founders of Colossal Biosciences, is also a member of the board of directors for the Explorers Club. And there are several others in this project involved with this Explorers Club. So I'm going to talk about that for a minute. The Explorers Club is an American-based international multidisciplinary professional society with the goal of promoting scientific exploration and field study. The club was founded in New York in 1904 and has served as a meeting point for explorers and scientists worldwide to promote the work of exploration by every means in its power, it says. Famous members have included Theodore Roosevelt, John Glenn, Jim Fowler, Walter Cronkite, Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, Sir Edmund Hillary, Buzz Aldrin, and Albert I, Prince of Monaco. The Explorers Club has 34 chapters in the U.S. and around the world. Back to Colossal Biosciences. In October of 2024, they announced they had rebuilt a genome of this Tasmanian tiger using an artificial uterus, and they want to bring it back. So this is a predator, a ferocious predator. All right. And don't forget, the Tasmanian tiger is the same one that the CIA funded. In-Q-Tel was also working on. But this article here says that people in Australia are already seeing those in the wild. Just like people are reporting seeing things that look like dire wolves. They also want to bring back the woolly mammoth. And that's the same as the one the CIA-funded In-Q-Tel wants to bring back. To do this, they plan to splice genes of an Asian elephant. So, to do the woolly mammoth, so that's a chimera. It says, in fact, Colossal has a long list of species they want to revive. They're giant predatory bears and beavers. This one, a giant bear and a jumbo beaver. But this giant bear right here is supposedly the largest terrestrial carnivore that has ever existed. Saber-toothed cats, Colombian mammoths, cave hyenas, mastodons, American cheetahs, and a woolly rhinoceros. That's just to name a few. Notice most of these are enormous and predatory, hence the name Colossal. But they are, I guess, challenged by being able to have artificial wombs large enough for these creatures or monsters. So I'm not sure how this fits with their climate change agenda, but I'm sure they will provide some explanation. Here are some of the advisory board members at Colossal. Ian Douglas Hamilton, who is commander of the British Empire. Meade Treadwell, who was lieutenant governor of Alaska. And he grew up in the Sandy Hook and attended Sandy Hook Elementary School. And his degree is from Yale and then Harvard. Thanks for listening.